Hey everyone, welcome to lesson 41 of Wednesdays with EWAT. This is Shanti Kumaraswamy Street, your business English trainer, calling from London for our regular weekly slot on Wednesdays with EWAT. How's everyone doing? I hope you're all well. We are the 18th of October. Before I go any further, I want to wish all my Malaysian Hindu friends and family a very happy Deepavali or happy Diwali, whichever you want. I didn't realize it was actually Deepavali. I need to put my hands up. I'm ever so sorry. It was actually my brother who said to me, happy Deepavali, and I thought, oh crumbs. Tomorrow is when we in England, in Britain, celebrate the Diwali, but I believe in Malaysia everyone's celebrating today. In fact, my dad, my stepmom and my brother, they had a nice lunch together. So anyway, I want to say happy Deepavali to all my Malaysian Hindu friends. Hi Sumesh, happy Diwali. So there you go. So tell me what you've been doing for Deepavali. I always loved it when I was in Malaysia, celebrating Diwali, which is the festival of lights for the Hindu calendar. I've always loved it, the story of Lord Rama and, you know, sort of all the lovely stories. I've always enjoyed it. Anyway, I hope you're having a good time. You're maybe on a day off. I know in Malaysia it's a public holiday. In the UK it wouldn't be a public holiday for people. So I think it's being celebrated tomorrow. But there you go. Anyway, welcome. We are, as I said, October 18th. Gosh, the time does fly. How's your autumn going, or how's your spring, or how's everybody doing? So what are we going to be talking about today on lesson 41 at Wednesdays with EWAT? We are going to be looking at how you can start thinking more effortlessly in English and stop translating from your native language into English. I'm sure you've seen lots of videos, blog posts looking at that. So that's what we're going to be talking about. But before we start the lesson, do drop in and tell me where you are and who, what time it is with you. And I will be, as I always do, looking up the Facebook page and checking all the comments that are coming through. So I'd be delighted to see. So let me refresh the page as I always do. Okay, so before I start, I want to remind you, if you haven't joined the EWord community yet, please, please, please do join. Sign up to join the EWord community. The EWord community is where you and your fellow professionals are going to be joining and working together on this journey towards more confidence, more feeling of achievement when in achieving that confidence in communicating well in English. And when I say well, I mean well for you. You feeling good about your ability to communicate effectively and efficiently with your colleagues in English. And that's what English with a Twist is all about. It's getting you there to feel confident, good about yourself, and have a sense of achievement, because that's what it is. It's not about perfect English. It's about being confident that you are communicating effectively and the other person knows exactly what you're talking about or what you're writing about. So join the EWAT community. You'll get lots of exposure to English, and you'll also have this, the community is growing and we do help each other out. So I'd love to see you. So don't delay, either straight after this class or even whilst we're chatting. Go on to englishwithatwist.com and sign up. All right, guys. So lesson 41. Let's have a look who's online. As I say, Sumesh has very kindly said happy Diwali to me, so I'm delighted. Thank you so much. Let's see. No, not many people around at the moment, so maybe it's early, maybe it's late. I have no idea. But don't be shy. Share, tell me how you are. Right, so we are going to talk about how to stop yourself from constantly translating from your own language into English. And I'm going to share with you a number of tips on how you can do that. Now, I hope you've got pen and paper next to you so that you can make a note of all these tips. And there are two things that you are going to always need when you are looking to think effortlessly in English. To be prepared to practice regularly and to put the effort in, because nothing happens miraculously. I'd love to give you that little pill that, you know, makes you immediately start thinking effortlessly in English. But no, be prepared to be a diligent, a consistent worker when it comes to English, to practicing your English. But we're going to look at it, how we're going to do that. Great. Hello from Spain. Hello from, hello Spain, not hello from Spain. It's hello from London. Right, so let's look at it. First of all, let's have a look, and I'm just looking at notes here. Why do you think we translate from our own language into a second language? And in this case, we're talking about English. Why do you think so? Hi, Tatiana. Lovely to see you. Hello, Ukraine. So tell me in a very, few words, why do you think you translate from your own language into English? What happens here? Why do we do that? Yes, Iman, let's join. This is a whole community, and as a community, we will learn English together. English for professionals, okay? So it's you becoming a better communicator in business. Go on, everyone. Why do you translate? Why can you not think in English effortlessly? Hi, Lenny. Hi, Philippines. Okay, let me tell you. Maybe let me put this out here. And this is an idea I got from a fellow teacher of mine, Christina, and she had a very good analogy, which is excellent. Hi, Christopher. Which is, imagine your brain as a muscle. Okay, Yunkal, I hope I'm pronouncing your name correctly. You're saying you need to organize the words in your mind first and then be ready to speak in English. Okay, so that takes time, doesn't it? It needs a bit of time. You're imagining, okay, word order, the structure of the words, and then by the time you thought of that, then you start speaking. And the trouble is, of course, if you're speaking to someone in English, they're waiting for you to think of all this word order and think of the structure and then eventually start speaking. And they can be so frustrating because, one, you can feel them waiting for you and you are feeling more pressured and stressed out by this. So how can we counteract that? But why are we doing it? Why do we do it in the first place? So let's imagine we have our brain, and our brain is, well, we do have a brain. Our brain is like a muscle, like the rest of our body. You know, people talk about how the brain needs to be used like a muscle. You think about how, as we're getting older, we're more prone to getting dementia, getting Alzheimer's. So there's been a lot of scientific research being done about how we as human beings can keep practicing using our brain as a muscle. So imagine language. You've been using your brain muscle to speak your own language, whether it's Japanese, Indonesian, Filipino, Tagalog, whatever language you speak. So you've used it all your life. You always use it every single day. Now think about how often you use English. How often do you exercise your English muscle in your brain? Let's think about that. How often do you do it? Maybe you're in a fortunate situation where you have to use English at work every single day, speaking the language, writing the language, or if you're like a majority of my clients, then perhaps it's maybe once or twice a week, and even less. So it's not consistent. It's very irregular. So think about if you were a runner and you start running and you are very irregular with your running. Your legs are not going to work as, your muscles are not going to build as quickly because you're not using it regularly. So the brain is exactly the same. So your English muscle in your brain, if it's not being used on a regular basis, then it is only natural that you're going to end up hesitating, trying to think of the words before they come out of your mouth. And yes, Christopher, absolutely. There's also the lack of vocabulary in English, but that's because there's a lack of practice, isn't there? Because you're not regularly using the English, you're not regularly seeing words, using the words, absorbing words, and so consequently there is that lack of vocabulary. So the key here is practice. And up to now you're probably going, yeah, right, okay, Shanti, you're not telling us anything that we don't know. Of course, there is no secret formula here. There's no magic formula. But it's something that I find myself reminding my clients on always. And it's interesting because we always have to be reminded of the fact that practice does make perfect. Practice does make us not so much perfect, more confident and more able to deal with the different situations. Okay, so that's what it is. So we need to now work on how we're going to get that English muscle in your brain working more effectively. I'm going to take 2 minutes just to have a look at all the comments, because I've seen here some comments that some of you are showing. Hello Indonesia, hello Pakistan, lovely to see you. I thought there are a number of new people joining Wednesdays with EWAT today, so it's great to see. I'm not seeing my regulars necessarily today. It could be that you're all busy. But let's have a look here. Taiwan, Indonesia, what else? So Christopher made a very good point about the lack of vocabulary that, you know, we have. So you can't find the words, and so then it becomes a problem. So unfortunately, I can't see all the comments, but I will get to them. So don't worry. Just keep writing. You know, I always want you to interact with me because it's always wonderful to see everyone interacting. All right, now let's have a look at this. Now we're going to need to exercise this muscle, this English muscle, to get you to that point where you are not constantly having to translate from your language into English. So let's look at some tips that I want to share with you today. Now these tips have come from different teachers. They're not just from me, and I've put them all together to share with you. So let's have a look at tip 1. And this is a tip that came from one of my fellow teachers, and I shared it in a blog post last year. Now the first tip is, one of the things you need to do is to master the basic grammar rules in English. And when I say the basic grammar rules, what am I talking about? I'm talking about the basic word order structure in English. Now there are different learners, depending on different learners, different languages have different word order structures, sentence order. Now in English, we always have the subject, the verb, and the object. Well, just one second, Christopher saying, we are so intimidated by someone who speaks English well, so we end up shy and afraid. I'd like to make a point. Thank you very much for mentioning that, Christopher. Yeah, so you're intimidated by someone who speaks English and then you feel blocked. This is exactly why I'm hoping you've joined the EWAT community, because this is what I'm on a mission to get all my EWATers feeling comfortable and feeling equal and not intimidated by any English speaking colleague or client, because you can achieve that. And the question is, a lot of it is down to how you feel, and if you take small steps and achieve the little goals you set yourself, you can feel very much empowered and not intimidated. Yes, you know, that's exactly what EWAT is all about. But thank you, Christopher, and I'm going to make a note of that and talk about that later. Okay, so one of the ways to overcome this fear of speaking, especially to an English-speaking person who they might be native speakers, they might be proficient users or whatever it is get your basic grammar rules. Now, I'm not talking about spending hours on your grammar. But it is important that you have the basic grammar rules. And as I say, getting your word order correct. Now in English we talk about the subject, the verb and the object. And we look at about an adverb, the place and time. So I like ice cream, or I arrived at the office yesterday. So, you know, there are word orders and so basic grammar, get yourself a good English grammar book and keep it as a resource. Now, one of the ones I use is Raymond Murphy's English Grammar in Use, and I think that's excellent. You get the intermediate level. You don't need to get anything else. In fact, I don't like the advanced level. The intermediate level is excellent, and keep it as a resource. Whenever you have a moment where you're questioning yourself about grammar, double check that. But it's important to get that word order, because then as you're writing, as you're speaking, it becomes natural. Subject verb agreements, exactly. Then try and make sure you get your tenses, you know, fairly clear in your head. Now, I'm not talking about every single English tense. I'm talking predominantly your present tense, present simple, present continuous, your past tenses, and really we're talking the past simple and the present perfect, which is used hugely in English, and the tenses for future. And it's not using will all the time. It's going to do something, I'm going. So just get those right in your head, get them clear. And the way you're going to do that is by doing some exercises on that and basically practicing that. So if you get yourself to a good basic grammar level, then that helps you to feel confident that at least you've got that right. Okay, so that's all I'm saying, but it doesn't have to be perfect. You just want to have that clear in your head. Someone's just asked me how long this lesson is for. If anyone knows, could you please answer? Okay, I'll answer it. It's about an hour, under an hour. I'm sorry, but I don't know what your name is because it's in Chinese characters and I don't read Chinese. I'm really sorry about that. But yes, it's an hour. So we started at 3. We'll be finishing at 4 British summertime. All right. Great. So get your basic grammar. That's it. Tip 2. Now, the next thing I want you to do is to learn your vocabulary, because the only way you're going to, of course, you have to grow your vocabulary. Your vocabulary, the wider vocabulary you have, the better for you, because you have a good choice of vocabulary. You don't have to learn every single word, because you're not going to do that. But the important thing is, when you're learning vocabulary, is to look at the words in context. If you're reading a text, if you're listening to someone, if you're writing a piece, look at the language, look at what you see written, and you look at a word. Say you pick a word and you think, okay, that word. Have a look at the words that come before it and after. Try and understand the words in context, and just be more observant of the language, whether you're reading, whether you're listening. So, so always do that. Now, one of the things I always say to my clients, and I am quite amazed at how few people do, but this is one thing I want you to do. If you are serious about becoming a more effective communicator, a more confident communicator, and less intimidated by your English speaking colleagues, I do want you to, the one thing you could do, the biggest investment you could make, apart from yourself, is to buy a notebook. Easy. Buy yourself a notebook and keep it with you at all times. Pen and paper will work miracles for you. And every time you are immersing yourself in English, whether it's reading an article, whether it's reading a blog post, whether it's listening to a podcast, whether it's listening to your favorite television show or a movie or a TED Talk, have that vocabulary, that little notebook next to you, and observe the language. And let's look at reading. Okay, so you have that vocabulary, you're reading something and you see a nice expression, you see an expression you like, and you think, okay, you like that expression, maybe you don't know what it means, so make a note of it. You like an expression, you want to try and learn it, to reproduce it, make a note of it. Always have this notebook next to you, constantly making notes of language that you observe around you. Okay, so that's one of the things. Keep a notebook always near you and observe the vocabulary, and not just one word in isolation. Words do not live on their own. They live in groups. So always look at that. We talk about verbs and nouns. Let's look at how a verb is used with a noun. You know, so put them together. So I make notes. I do homework. I do an assignment. I do business. I give a speech. I give a talk. These are words that go together. So when you start building those expressions, you know, so you then have a bank of expressions that's growing for you. Following on from that, it's also listening. When you're listening and reading, so, you know, pick up these expressions. You're listening to your movie, you're listening to a podcast, you're listening to a TED Talk. Now, let me say, if you're watching a movie, most of us can pause, and if you hear something, great, stop and have a look. And, you know, just think, oh, I like that sound. And maybe it's repeated again, and it keeps repeating. If you're watching a TED Talk, or you're listening to a news item, and if it's on your computer, you can stop, rewind, and listen to what they're saying. Often there are places where you have the transcript. So if you're reading and listening, that's even better, because you notice the language and you can hear how it sounds. So constantly do it, and you think, I like that, I'd like to try and use that. So make a note of it. Try and repeat it out aloud to yourself. And all this is practice, 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 which your brain muscle is absorbing all the time. So it's all great practice for you. And so that's what I want you to try and do. And another tip that I want to share with you is one of the biggest things, and I do this even for my beginners. I have to say, I do not teach beginners. I teach people who are intermediate and above. And I always say to clients, to all my clients, buy yourselves, apart from the notebook, that's investment number one. Investment number two should be a monolingual dictionary. I notice some people mention dictionaries. I hope you're talking about a monolingual dictionary. Hi Rakesh, hi Jyoti, hi everyone. I'm sorry if I'm not saying Magali. Yes, yeah. I also look in the dictionary, the different meanings in different contexts. Fantastic, Magali. Is it a monolingual dictionary? When I say monolingual, I mean an English only dictionary. There are some fantastic online dictionaries out there. You have Cambridge Dictionary, Cambridge University, Oxford, and Macmillan. I particularly like Macmillan, but there's also Cambridge I use a lot. Go online, look for them, and consult the dictionary in English. Avoid using a dual language, you know, your language with an English dictionary. Why? An English only dictionary is going to, one, give you more practice in English, because you're having to look at the explanation in English and also the description of the word. Plus, monolingual dictionaries also give you a lot of examples of how the words are going to be used and what other words can go with them. So explore some online dictionaries. I will put a link to, for example, Macmillan in Cambridge, because they give you some excellent examples and definitions, and they also give you other ways to say things. So get used to using an English only dictionary, because also the more you see the explanation in English, the more you are immersing yourself in the language, and you will so when you're seeing the description, you're seeing the explanation sticks in your brain, and it's not an explanation that's in your own language. I've tested this out with a lot of my clients, and it really works, and they've ended up buying their monolingual dictionary, because that's the only way you're going to really get the practice you need. Magali, you say you use the Oxford Advanced Learners Dictionary? Exactly, yes. And in fact, I have it on my phone, because you can get the app. I think Oxford, I'm not too sure about Cambridge, but Oxford definitely has the app, and you can put it on your iPad or your phone. So you have it there all the time, and it's a very, very good way. Plus, the online dictionaries, if you remember last week's lesson 40, when we were talking about pronunciation, the online dictionaries help you also with the pronunciation of the words. So where you're not too sure, you can click and hear how the word is pronounced. So there we go. Monolingual dictionary, get your copy today in whatever form you find useful. Another tip I have is observe English around you. Now, you might not be living in an English-speaking country, but English is everywhere on the internet. Have you noticed? It's everywhere. So one of the biggest things you can do, for example, is on the internet, switch your settings to English. Switch all your settings so that you are constantly seeing everything, instructions in English. Don't put it into your own language. Put it into English. And when you're sending text messages or WhatsApps, if you're writing to people in English, make sure you've got the keyboard in English. So you put that in your settings. But otherwise have that. Now, so where you're observing English, wherever you're using English, whether it's a blog post, as I say, whether it's the internet, you're listening to anything, observe it. Now, and also, not just the language. Say, for example, you're walking around, you're in the middle of your work and you're doing some stuff. Try and think of what you're looking around you in English. So for example, you are walking to work and you observe, you know, there are many cars, there's a lot of traffic, and think to yourself, you know, so you think you're looking around you and think of the words in English. Think of, yeah, I wonder what that word, okay, if you can't find the word, make a note of it. So I can't remember what that word is in English. I'll make a note of it, and then when you have some time, go check it out. But in the meantime, you're looking around and saying, oh yes, the trees are beautiful today. So think about what the trees are, beautiful. So what is it? You're thinking about it first in your language, but then try and observe everything in English. And at the beginning, you're probably going to think, well, that just sounds strange, and it is not going to be natural to you. But you, with a little bit of practice, you gradually get used to that. You know, so a little bit, I'm not saying do it every day, the entire day, because that's exhausting. Just a little bit at a time. You know, you look at something or you sit at your desk and you start looking around your desk and you start thinking, okay, so what do I call this? What is this? This is the laptop. That's the telephone. This is the webcam. You know, so think of the words. And if you don't, write the word you want to know and then find out. And the exercise of doing this, because you're actively searching for these words, you are going to remember them. Not immediately maybe, but it will. You get into that, you're exercising that muscle again. So that's what I want you to be doing, trying to do that. You know, it's just little things that you can incorporate in your very busy lives. The other thing is, of course, when you're observing all this stuff and you're thinking, well, okay, that's very good, Shanti, but this is all passive. It's all sitting in my head. How am I going to get this all out? And the thing is also, if you're observing things, you can also practice speaking. And you're thinking, yeah, but Shanti, who am I going to talk to? I don't have anyone to talk to. And you know what? You could talk to yourselves. I know, I'm always talking to myself, but then, you know, I'm a bit strange. But you could speak to yourself. So how are you going to do this? What are you going to do? Let's take an example. Say, for example, you are having a shower in the morning, getting ready for work, and you're planning your day. Most of us are like that, right? You're getting ready, or maybe you're having breakfast. You start planning your day. You're already thinking of your schedule. It's going to be really busy. You've got various meetings, and you think, oh gosh, it's just going to be a nightmare. Okay, why don't you take that 10 minutes of that time and start speaking to yourself about your day in English? So think about it. So say, well, right, okay. So I'm having breakfast now. I've got a meeting this morning at 7 a.m. with the suppliers, or we have got a conference call. I need to discuss those issues. It's going to be important. Now, some people say, yeah, but I won't know whether I'm making a mistake or not. It doesn't matter whether you're making a mistake. You're getting practice. You're speaking. You're beginning to use your words. And if you have time, not everyone has, but why not record yourself? Maybe you're getting ready for breakfast or whatever, and you put your smartphone, switch it on, and go, right, so today give yourself that little homework every day. I'm going to record my agenda for the day. So today I'm going to do this, and then I've got this meeting. Now that's going to be a difficult meeting. I hope we manage to solve this problem. And if you can't find the word, don't worry. As you're recording, you could go in your own language, can't find that word, need to find that word. But try, this is my next point, paraphrasing. Instead of immediately thinking of the word you're trying to think back in your language, how about if you can't find a word? So imagine you cannot find a word for negotiations. So, or you need to negotiate, or maybe you can, or you're thinking about a supplier and you can't think of the word supplier. So you think, oh God, I can't remember the word. Okay, so paraphrase. Learn to paraphrase, because paraphrasing is an excellent way of also helping you communicate. So you could be in the middle of this and you go, okay, note to self, cannot find the word. It's that word, when I need to discuss the people who sell us the, the whatever. And you think, and then maybe you might think, okay, let me just put it in my language, and then go and look at the word and then find the word in English. And then you maybe record it or make a note. I know most of you are sort of probably listening going, oh, Shanti, this is an awful lot of work. Yes, it is. It does take a lot of work. It takes a lot of dedication. It takes a lot of discipline. But nothing worthwhile, and if you are to succeed, but nothing worthwhile in life, nothing of value has ever been achieved easily, right? Please tell me if it has, because I've yet to find something. So if communicating well in English is important to you, to feel equal to your English-speaking colleagues, to overcome that fear you have of speaking in English and being considered equal and an expert in your field, then isn't it worth the trouble and the time? Because that's the only way you're going to own the language and feel confident using that language. There is no secret formula. This is what you need to do. Now, you can pick and choose. You can decide, okay, I'm going to do this and I'm going to do that. So choosing something that works for you and trying it out. Give yourself maybe a month and see whether it works. If it works, fantastic. If it doesn't, try something else. And this is what language learning is all about. And most of things in life, it's trial and error, like making mistakes in English. You make the mistake, you think, oh, gosh, I made a mistake. Okay, don't worry. Learn from it. You now know what the correct way is. Next time it will be better. And we keep going, because that's the only way we are going to overcome the challenges and the obstacles. And that is for everything, right? If you're a business owner, if you are struggling in your business, you're struggling in your profession, the only way you're going to improve to become a better person, become a better professional, is by working at it, developing it, fine-tuning it, doing all that is necessary. It has to be the same in English. Now, English is a means for you to achieve that success in your job. And that's what we're here to do. But it does need some dedication. And so I always say to my clients, there's no quick way. But I can motivate you, I can help you, I can mentor you to get there. And there are ways to do it. The important thing is to find something that works for you, and only you know that, and keep going with it. And that's why I spend a lot of time with my clients exploring different ways that they find that will help them with their English. So, so I'm a firm believer of that. So, this is entirely up to you. All I'm doing is giving you tips here. And then it's up to you. It's all in your hands. Your destiny is in your hands. Okay, we're getting a bit philosophical now in this class, aren't we? So practice speaking, as I said. So practice, why not? You've got your smartphone, start talking to yourself. Start saying, oh, well, I need this, or I love, I love that movie. I thought it was a wonderful movie. Whatever it is, whatever you feel comfortable with. Because it's only for you. You're the one practicing this. So, don't worry what other people think. I think they probably envy you and think, oh, God, aren't they good? All right, so, and I said, so speaking also allows you to paraphrase, because one of the key things about communicating in any language, and especially in a language that's not your own, is when we often forget the words, right? And it's not just about because you don't have the words. Often it can also be because we just forgotten. The word has slipped our minds. It's always happening to me. Proficient users of English, even in your language, come on, tell me the last time you forgot a word in your own language. You can't think of the word. So you are talking to someone and you can't think of the word, or maybe you just don't know what the word is. So how are you going to help yourself? How are you going to communicate? Because you need to still keep talking. So paraphrasing, finding another way to talk about how you're going to how you want to explain what you're trying to say. So paraphrase. Now, when you paraphrase, you are giving examples. So for example, when you try and do this, so you can't find the word for notebook. You've just forgotten it. You can't think. So how are you going to remember that? So you need to try and tell the person who you're speaking to. So you could say maybe, it's a book you use to write. And so maybe someone will go, oh, you mean a notebook? Yeah, that's it, a notebook. Yes. So often the person you're speaking to will help you with the language. So giving an explanation, offering another way, then that is a key skill to learn, because that will help you, and it makes sense, doesn't it? Now, one of the things I also want you to think about is using, what helps also in English is using relative clauses. What are relative clauses? This is a bit of grammar. Using words like who, which, that, when, where. So try using those, because they come in handy for you. So who we use with people, which and that for things, where is for places, and when for the time. So you are looking at, for example, you can't think of the word of optician. Yeah, the word optician. And you know what you're thinking about, you just can't think of the word, right? So optician. So you think, okay, so you're talking about, you went and, you went for an eye test, and the person who checks your eyes, the test, when you cannot see, you need glasses. Oh, you mean the opticians? Yes, that's it. So the word like, the person who. Yeah, or maybe you can't think of a place you've been to. Maybe you can't think of the word of shopping mall, or I don't know, the town hall. And so then you think, you know, the place where so think about shopping mall. So you know the place where there are many shops, you have a car park, it's big, normally outside the town, you know, many shops. Oh, you mean a shopping mall, a shopping center? Yes, that's what I mean. Shopping mall, shopping center. Now, by doing that, they have offered you the word, and you might remember it again, and the chances are you will. Or if you have your notebook, you know, that famous notebook I told you, oh great, yeah, shopping mall, yeah. All right, how do I spell mall? M-A-L-L. Oh great, yes, that's what I meant. And because you are talking about it, you have the context, you're going to remember that. Christopher, sometimes when you speak English, they might think that you're trying to impress them, but they don't even come to think. Okay, Christopher, I'm getting lost. What exactly you mean by that? Tell me more so I can get to see that. Anyway, by the way, I've seen some new people joining the class. Hi, Vasiliki. Hi, everyone. Alexan, we're talking about how to think effortlessly in English. How to start thinking in English and not constantly translating from your own language into English. So we're talking about giving tips. You can always watch the recording after this. So, you know, so that's why paraphrasing, using these relative clauses, you know, the person who cuts, I don't know, you know, the person who offers you, you know, so lots of different things you can do to paraphrase. So don't forget, and for example, also, you know, the machine that cuts your grass, the machine that cuts your grass. Oh, you mean a lawnmower? Yes, the lawnmower. Oh, how do I spell that? So I'll spell it for you. L-A-W-N mower. Oh, lawnmower. Well, thank you. So ask someone to help you. You know, it's not all you that has to come up with the language yourself, but there are ways you can help yourself. Now, the other point is, I already mentioned this, is I talked about changing the settings in your apps into English. And I think that I'll say this again, which is a great way of doing that. For example, when I go running, I have the app Runtastic. Do any of you use Runtastic? Because it's great. I love Runtastic. Now, I have put the voice coach. So on Runtastic, you have a voice coach. So it can tell you, you know, how many kilometers you've gone, you know, whatever you want. Now, the voice coach has different languages. If you chose English, and I think you can choose American or English, British English, I don't know, can't remember now. Put it into English. Because what happens is you're running or you're cycling, you're walking or whatever you're doing. So you're exercising, and then halfway through or whenever you set your voice coach to say, it will say, you know, for example, with me, it's every kilometer that I've run. So I run after kilometers. So it will say, distance, 1 kilometer, duration, and then it tells me. Now, okay, it's not telling me an awful lot, but because you're constantly hearing those words, you know, you get used to it, and you're, you know, thinking, yeah, okay, so it's just practicing. And so, you know, other apps put them into English so that you're constantly hearing that. And so, you know, that allows you to learn also numbers. For example, when you're running, it's telling you 1 kilometer, 2.2, pace, whatever per kilometers, and you just get into that rhythm of learning. You know, there's so many resources, so many tools, so many places where we can put our settings into the English, and so try it out, and that way it is not difficult for you. You know, it's not, it's easy. Change that, and then it's just automatic every time you hear it, and you don't even notice it after a while. So that's a great way of doing it. Finally, I want to come to my final tip, and this is one that not just about thinking. I think this is one of the most important skills that I try very hard to encourage all my clients to do. and I've written about this in my blog post. So for you who follow me on my blog post or my blog, then you'll see, is writing. I cannot stress enough how much writing skills, your writing skills, improving your writing skills, practicing writing in English is going to not only improve your grammar, your spelling, your sentence structure, it is going to give you so much confidence in your fluency skills. And it's also going to develop, of course, your vocabulary. But the key here is also your fluency. But let's look at the writing skills. Now, I was talking to one of my clients yesterday, and I've just finished a program with him. We've worked in the last 6 weeks. We've been working twice a week on a coaching sessions, twice a week. And we were looking at the 4 skills. You have 4 skills. We have reading, listening, writing, and speaking. Listening and reading, I think you will agree with me, are passive learning because you're absorbing the language. You're reading the language, you're reading expressions, you're looking at new vocabulary, you're looking at sentence structure. So reading is an excellent way of developing your vocabulary and observing the language in use. Listening develops your listening skills and also allows you to develop the rhythm. You learn the rhythm of the language, particularly with English, because English is a very rhythmic language. So you'll hear the intonation of the language when we ask questions, when we go drop our voice, for negatives, and also pronunciation, of course, because while you're reading, you are then also going to hear how the words are pronounced, especially for the English language. So those are 2 very passive. You're absorbing that language, which is very, very important. And also one of the things with listening, that is one of the reasons why I made my audio blogs, made my blog posts into audio blogs, because I want you to be able to read and listen at the same time. So you hear how the words sound, and also for connected speech. Yes, because it's not just words in isolation, it's how we connect the speech together. So you get used to that. But that's all absorbing, right? We're all absorbing this. Now the key is, how do you reproduce? How do you produce this language? And that's where everyone wants to do fluency. Everyone wants to practice their speaking. And yet you need to also develop your writing skills, because it's your writing skills that's going to help you hugely develop and improve your fluency. Why? Because your writing skills gives you the time that you need to develop your thoughts, structure the words, think of what you're trying to say, how you want to say it, and to think about your message carefully. And that gives you a lot of that thinking time. And then moving from that writing, you move it into fluency, to speaking. So many clients I've had in the past where they would come to me for a full immersion, or whether it's an intensive course online, they say, Shanti, I just want to practice my fluency. And I go, how much writing do you do? Oh no, I'm okay with writing. I'm okay with writing. I can do that. And I say, well, how do you do that? Well, I look up Google Translate. I do this, I do that. I said, right. But when they're speaking to me, they're getting confused with their sentence structure. And I think, well, if you want to improve your fluency, if you have certain messages you need to deliver and you need to be effective with those messages, then you need to develop your writing. Your writing will not only get your grammar and your spelling ready and automatic so that you don't eventually have to think about that, it will also help you develop structure in your thoughts. Example, let me give you an example. I train a lot of my clients for job interviews. So job interviews, and it doesn't have to just be job interviews. Say someone asks you, tell me a bit about yourself. How do you develop how that fluency? How are you going to talk about yourself? Now, most of us, we can talk about ourselves. That's great, wonderful. But the thing is, if you're in a job interview, you need to keep it short and sweet, like the binomials that I covered last week. Short and sweet. You know, your interview doesn't have all day to listen to about your life story. So you need to keep it short. And you need to think very clearly about what you're trying to say, what you want to say. So you need to choose the key points. But the thing is, though, when we are speaking, we're doing the thinking at the same time as speaking. In our own language, we have the tools because we have ways we have developed over the years, so the muscle has been very well used to develop that. So we know we can sort of edit some things and go straight. Although not always. I've heard some people go on and on and on and think, okay, people, come on. So in English, it's going to be much more difficult because maybe you don't have all the vocabulary. You are thinking hard about how to think of the words, think of the sentence structure, think of the word order, and you're thinking, this is all a bit too much. Plus, you have to make an impression on this interviewer. There's a lot of stress. So what do I say? Let's work. Let's write this down. Put your thoughts on paper. What do you want to say? What do you want the interviewer to hear about you? So then write it down. Think about what you want to say. And then practice that. Practice it until it becomes natural. And you're choosing only what you want to say in a certain point. Now, this sort of exercise helps you eventually also develop your confidence in speaking, because you are focusing very much on these two skills. You're writing and you're speaking. Yes, and Vasiliki, as you say, especially when we need to translate what we think. Yeah, so to avoid that translation, because you'll be translating. So we don't want to translate. We want, you're putting in all these your techniques to avoid that. But if your tendency is to translate, then you really need to learn how to write in English first. Building that, developing your skill in producing the language in writing. That way, it also gives you the time to focus, to think, clarify your thoughts, and then make it shorter, make your sentences shorter, make it, in some languages, writing have very long sentences. In English, we prefer simple, shorter sentences. Yeah, I'm not saying simplistic language, I'm saying simple structures. So do that, so it's working on that. And so keep a journal, for example, and make notes. So for example, if you've, at the beginning of the day, you've recorded your day of what's been happening, maybe at the end of the day, if you're not too tired, and maybe you can give yourself 15 minutes in your notebook, in your little journal, just make some notes about your day. How was your day? What was it like? What were the good things? What were the bad things about your day? Choose something that you decide, well, I'd like to be able to talk about this. Okay, but I'm not so sure. So develop it in writing first, and then try speaking about it. Vasiliki is saying, isn't it funny? For example, I can write much more fluently and quickly. Yes, because you've developed a lot of writing, presumably, Vasiliki, also as a teacher. So you do a lot of writing. So we developed that. But then the key then is to take that writing and try and present it fluently, spoken. Now, you can do it yourselves. You can try and present it to yourself. And imagine you're speaking to someone and try and talk about it. So that there are ways that you can do that. But it's very, very important. Vasiliki, you're great. A glass of whiskey always helps my speaking fluency. Yeah, well, if that's your trick, if that's if it's something that you'd recommend, we will try that, all of us. In fact, they say it, it loosens your tongue. It loosens your tongue, and then you're able to, start speaking more fluently, and so that could help. Anything that helps, I am always for, it is having that confidence. You are going to make mistakes, I promise you, because anyone who doesn't make mistakes, I would like to meet them, because even proficient speakers make mistakes. So so you have to, try everything. The key is that. Keiko, you're saying, so we have to develop critical thinking first to write it down. Yeah, it's critical thinking. It's thinking, what is my message? What am I trying to do? I mean, obviously, you're not going to do this every day, right? But that is what we're all about. What is good communication? Good communication is, what am I trying to say, and how am I going to say it? And is it going to be clear enough for my listener or my reader, whoever it is you're communicating to? So you've got to always think that way. Rachel, how do we develop prepositions? See, it's writing. Writing, but it's also reading. Reading and listening. Reading, observing that language. So you can't ignore reading and listening. Observing that language, making a note of language that you like, and then reproducing it in writing and in speaking. So the two go together. And yeah, exactly, Vasily, we make mistakes in our language too. I make mistakes. Sometimes I'm thinking, oh no, what have I just said? Oh dear, terrible. No, what I meant was this. I didn't mean that. So, but the thing is, we are comfortable when we make mistakes in our own language. We're okay with that because we think, oh yeah, okay, it's my language, it's okay. But because you've exercised that muscle, yes, now here you see there's one guy who's just said, I've been learning for a long time, but I can't speak. Now, I'd like to know why. Is it because you're stopping yourself? What are your expectations? So this is what I always like to explore with my clients. Really, can you not speak? Are you incapable? Or what is it you want to try and say? So it's picking up little topics. I've used up a lot of your time. It's nearly 4 o'clock and you need to go. You have other things to do. Thank you so much for your time. But one of the things, talking about writing, is I'm developing a program which I'm going to be launching, which is going to be a 2-week program I'm calling it the Business Writing to Fluency Lab. And it's a 2-week program where you would develop a topic that you want to talk about. So the idea is you're starting from fluency. You're thinking about, I would like to be able to talk about this. It could be myself. It could be a hobby. It could be the latest problem I've had at work. Whatever it is, your choice. And then but first you're going to start with writing about it, developing what you want to say, fine-tuning that. We're going to look at sentence structure, grammar, and then you're going to work towards that to then present that in spoken language, in the spoken English. So developing your thoughts, building, so using writing skills to develop your confidence and your ability to speak clearly and comfortably and confidently in English. So that's what we're going to be looking at in the next few weeks, and I'll be writing. So if you are a part of the EWAT community, you'll find out a lot more about this. So I'll be telling you a bit more about that. Vasiliki, you said, important question, please. Do you think that the less interesting the topic, the more mistakes we may make? What do you think, Vasiliki? The less interesting the topic, the more mistakes we make. The less interesting topic to you, right? So, okay, so you've been told you have to talk about a topic. I think yes. In fact, it was one of my clients, I asked her these questions about this program. And she said to me, oh, Shanti, oh no, is it one of those topics that come up in the Cambridge exam? Because I've never tried those structured topics. I don't like those. And I said, no, I don't want you to talk about the environment or pollution or climate change. I want you to talk about a topic you want to talk about. And it could be just as simple as, I want to present myself. Imagine you are going to be at a conference event and you need to liaise, you need to introduce yourself to your clients, your customers, your fellow colleagues. How are you going to do that? How are you going to give that elevator pitch? How are you going to do it? Now, most people are terrified. What do you want them to know about you? What is so interesting about you? You know, I don't want to just talk about your job definition. Tell me about yourself. Why are you an interesting person? Because we all are. Now, when I ask my clients that, they all said they go, oh. Then they start talking, and then they start umming and ahhing, and they don't know. And I go, no, I want you to write about it first. Write about it. Think hard. Think about what you want that person to remember about you. Think about it. And that is critical thinking. That is at the same time giving you a lot of practice in your English. Then present it. So keep working, keep doing it. And that's what I'm looking at. Helping you, coaching you to get to that point. And it's only one topic. But here's the thing. It is one topic. It's that one small step that builds your confidence. I'm not asking you to go from here to there. I'm asking you to take your little steps, because it's only through little steps that you will build that confidence and reduce that fear you have inside you of communicating confidently, effectively in English or in anything. And so that's what it is. It's small steps. Yeah, we always say Rome wasn't built in a day, and it wasn't. And that's what you've got to remember always, always. Keep your objectives, keep your goals small, and you will achieve it. And that sense of achievement, of getting there, is priceless, because you get to the point that I feel so good. I was able to share with them. And that just gives you that boost you need to keep going. And that's all. As a trainer, as a business English trainer, as a coach, that's all I'm here to do. I want you to feel good about yourself in your ability to communicate in English, because you can. And it is not about being an advanced level speaker in English. Thank you so much. Thank you for listening to lesson 41. I hope I gave you some useful tips here on how you can start thinking effortlessly in English. You know, try some of these techniques, try some of these tips, and tell me how you get on. Or even better, tell me what techniques have worked for you, and maybe you could share that with the other members of the EWAT community. So don't forget, please join EWAT, the EWAT community, at englishwithatwist.com. I can't wait to see you there. In the meantime, this is me, Shanti Kumaraswamy Street, your business English trainer from English with a Twist, saying ciao for now. Thank you so much for listening. Thank you so much for interacting with me, and I will see you next week for lesson 42. Take care, guys. Thank you so much. Take care. Bye.